All right, let's get right into it. Today, we're going to break down one of the most foundational and, let's be real, one of the trickiest parts of the BCBA exam, the simple schedules of reinforcement. You know that feeling, right? You're staring at a practice question, and your brain just goes into a total spin cycle trying to remember the difference between fixed ratio and variable interval. If that's you, trust me, you are so not alone. This is a super common sticking point. And here's why you've got to get this down cold. This stuff falls under domain B, and that whole domain makes up a whopping 14% of your exam. So yeah, nailing these questions, it's absolutely crucial for passing. But I've got some really good news. We are going to crack this code today. There's a super simple framework. I'm talking just 2 questions you need to ask yourself that's going to make telling these schedules apart feel totally second nature. Okay, here's question number 1. And honestly, this is the big one. Is the reinforcement based on work, meaning you're counting responses, or is it based on a wait, meaning a certain amount of time has to pass? Just asking this one question cuts all 4 schedules right in half. So this is the first major fork in the road. On one side, you've got ratio schedules. And a great way to remember this is ratio equals reps. It's all about counting how many times the behavior happens. Then, on the other side, you have interval schedules. For this one, think interval equals time. It's all about the clock. So let's dig into ratio schedules a little more. A ratio schedule is kind of like getting paid for piecework or working on commission. The more widgets you crank out, the more money you make. Reinforcement is delivered only after a specific number of responses have happened. Your effort is what directly gets you that reward. And then we have interval schedules. This is more like getting a salary. You get paid every 2 weeks, right? Not for every single email you send. Reinforcement becomes available after some amount of time goes by. And listen up, because this part is super important for the exam. Reinforcement is delivered for the first correct response you make after that time is up. It's not automatic. Awesome. We've got our first question down pat. Now let's add the second layer to our framework. Is the requirement for reinforcement predictable? Like, is it set in stone? Or is it unpredictable and always changing?
And here's that next split laid out perfectly. When you see fixed, I want you to think the requirement is always the same. It never, ever changes. But when you see variable, think the requirement changes around an average. That unpredictability is the name of the game here.
You know, what's great about this is how simple it is. When you see the word fixed in a schedule, that's your cue for consistency. The rule is totally predictable. If reinforcement comes after every 5 responses, it is always after every 5 responses. No surprises.
But on the flip side, variable is your big keyword for unpredictability. The requirement for reinforcement is a moving target, but it all centers around an average. So it might be after 2 responses, then 8, then 5, but it all averages out to, let's say, 5. And it's this unpredictability that makes these schedules so incredibly powerful.
Okay, so we have our 2 questions locked and loaded. Work or wait? Predictable or unpredictable? Now let's put it all together and see how these 2 simple questions define each of the 4 schedules. First up, we've got fixed ratio, or FR. So let's run it through our system. Question 1, work or wait? It's ratio, so it's work, a number of responses. Question 2, predictable or unpredictable? It's fixed, so yep, it's predictable. A classic example you'll see is a client earning 1 token for every 5 math problems they solve. It's always 5, every single time. Now for the exam, you've got to know the response patterns. For FR, the big one is the post-reinforcement pause. After the client gets that token, they know they have another 5 problems to go, so they might take a little break before jumping back in at a really high, steady pace. Okay, now for the schedule that drives some of the most persistent behavior we know, variable ratio, or VR. It's a ratio schedule, so we know it's based on work. But it's variable, so it's totally unpredictable. Reinforcement comes after an average number of responses. Think about checking your email or refreshing your social media feed. You don't know when the next notification will pop up, so you just keep checking. And this unpredictability is exactly why VR is so powerful. It creates this incredibly high, steady rate of responding with almost no breaks. We call it the slot machine effect. You just keep pulling that lever because the very next poll could be the one that hits the jackpot. This is the schedule that builds the most stubborn, extinction-resistant behavior. All right, let's switch gears to time-based schedules. First, fixed interval, or FI. It's an interval schedule, so it's based on waiting, and it's fixed so that wait time is predictable. A great example is checking for a package that you know gets delivered around 3 p.m. every single day.
You're not really checking at 9 a.m., but as 3 p.m. gets closer, you start looking out the window more and more.
And what's really cool is the visual pattern this creates on a graph. We call it the FI scallop. You see this lull in responding right after reinforcement, and then the behavior gradually ramps up as the end of the interval gets closer and that reinforcement becomes available again.
And last but not least, we have variable interval, or VI. It's an interval schedule, so it's time-based, but it's variable, so it's an unpredictable amount of time. Think about a supervisor who does random check-ins to give you praise. You have no idea when they're going to stop by, so you just try to stay on task consistently throughout the day.
The hallmark pattern here is a slow to moderate but very steady rate of responding. Because you never know when reinforcement might be available, you just keep plugging along. It's not that frantic, high-speed pace you see with a VR schedule, but it's super consistent and reliable.
Okay, phew, that was a lot, but you've got the whole framework now. So let's lock it all in with a quick little summary, an ultimate cheat sheet that you can use for the exam and take right into your clinical work.
This table right here is everything. It perfectly lays out our two-question system. Is reinforcement based on the number of responses? Boom, you're in the ratio column. Is it based on time? You're in the interval column. Is the requirement predictable? You're in the fixed row. Unpredictable? You're in the variable row. Seriously, this table is your mental model.
And for the exam itself, your secret weapon is spotting these key words. If a question says every 5 responses, that's a giant flashing neon sign for fixed ratio. If you see the magic word average paired with responses, it's variable ratio. After 5 minutes, points you straight to fixed interval, and average paired with time screams variable interval. Watch for these phrases. They're giving you the answer.
So let's end with this thought, because this isn't just about passing an exam. It's about being a really effective clinician. Which schedule would you use to teach a new skill really fast? And maybe even more important, which schedule would you thin to make sure that skill sticks around long after you're gone? That's when this knowledge truly comes to life.